Welcome to this explainer. For the longest time, video games were treated basically like interactive toys, or they tried to tell stories by simply copying what books and movies had already perfected. But as the medium has really matured, creators have found these incredible ways to weave a narrative directly into the rules of the virtual worlds themselves. Today, we're exploring exactly how video games have evolved way beyond just imitating traditional media, and how they tell stories in a way that literally only games can. Think about it. How do you actually tell a compelling story when the audience is the one holding the controller? In a movie theater, you just sit back and watch the director's vision unfold. The tragedy happens on the screen, totally separate from you. But in a game, you're the one in charge of the pacing, the movement, the actions. So how does a creator narrate a betrayal or a massive triumph when you have the steering wheel? Well, we're going to jump straight into one of the greatest answers to this question ever designed. Let's dive right into a masterclass in world building, Dark Souls. When you're dumped into the absolute meat grinder that is the world of Lordran, your only real safe haven is Firelink Shrine, and right at its center sits Anastacia. She's the silent fire keeper, and her life force is literally what keeps your primary bonfire lit. She acts as this crucial mechanical anchor for your safety in a world that, honestly, wants to destroy you at every single turn. Now, early on in your adventure, you might decide to play the hero and free Knight Lautrec from a locked cell. This allows him to relocate back to your shrine. But as you progress, ringing the bells of awakening, this incredibly grim progression unfolds. He repays your rescue by murdering Anastacia in cold blood. And the devastating consequence of that? Your primary bonfire goes completely out. You drag yourself back home, battered from combat, expecting that familiar safety, and instead, your lifeline is just a pile of ash. This isn't just some sad plot point you watch, it's a mechanical tragedy that you genuinely feel in your gut. Your ability to rest and level up right there has been stolen from you. And this is where the narrative characterization just elevates the whole thing. If you happen to chat with Lautrec right before the murder, he drops this incredibly chilling hint. He says, "That keeper has served me well, but enough with her." He treats her not like a person but like a tool that's just outlived its usefulness. This arrogant, sinister dialogue takes the cold, hard game mechanic of losing your bonfire and gives it a very real, very punchable face. You don't just feel inconvenienced, you feel personally betrayed and provoked. So let's zoom out for a second. Why does this specific sequence stick with us for years, often way more than a game's actual written script? Well, to understand exactly why this interactive betrayal works so incredibly well on a psychological level, we can look at some fascinating academic research by Ching-Ching Zhao from the University of Dublin, who published a really detailed study on this exact concept. Zhao points out that in the early days, video games really lacked their own native storytelling language, so they leaned super hard on non-interactive text boxes. Just think about early World of Warcraft. You walk up to a character, click on them, and a massive wall of text pops up to explain the lore. The game is essentially just imitating literature. You are basically pausing the game just so you can read a novel on your screen. The crucial takeaway here is the stark contrast between passive consumption and active participation. Traditional storytelling in early games forced you to passively consume the plot, imitating books with long texts or imitating movies with long, unplayable cutscenes. But modern interactive design, it uses the game mechanics themselves to keep you locked in. You aren't just reading a paragraph about a murderer, you're actively dealing with the mechanical deficit of losing your sanctuary because of that murderer. Zhao formally defines this as storytelling through game mechanics. It's the intentional use of interactive elements, the hard rules of the game world, and the player's own behaviors to narrate a story. Zhao argues that when a narrative lacks true interaction, it can actually shatter your immersion and break the continuity of gameplay. Actually, think about it. If Dark Souls had just yanked the controls away to play a 5-minute movie of Lautrec killing Anastacia, it wouldn't have hit the same at all. The absolute genius is letting you discover that dead fire on your own, forcing you to connect the dots between your past actions and this new mechanical punishment. This represents a massive paradigm shift. It treats the player as an actor rather than just an audience member. In traditional media, you're the audience. You watch the director's vision play out, totally separated from the events. But in virtual worlds, we're active actors. Our behaviors physically impact the narrative landscape. Remember, you were the one who opened Lautrec's cell. You literally brought the wolf into the sheep's pen. The story isn't just happening to you, it's happening because of you. And that creates a level of guilt and empathy that passive media simply cannot replicate. But the game doesn't just leave you hanging as a victim. When you loot Anastacia's remains, you find an item called the Black Eye Orb. And much later in the game, when you finally reach the grand, sunlit city of Anor Londo, this orb begins to quiver. It actually allows you to actively invade Lautrec's world to seek your vengeance. You transition from the victim of his actions to the hunter tracking him down. It builds into an absolute masterpiece of mechanical storytelling. Now, the game certainly doesn't hand you this revenge on a silver platter. The mechanics themselves are rigged to make you feel the incredible uphill battle of this narrative climax. Look at the brutal hurdles you face when you invade his world. You aren't just outnumbered 3-1 by Lautrec and his phantoms. Because you're an invader, the game rules completely strip away your ability to heal with your Estus Flask. Every hit you take is permanent. Add in the fact that he dual-wields weapons that pierce right through your shield, and he wears a ring that violently spikes his damage when his health gets low. It's the perfect proof of Zaw's theory. The mechanical difficulty itself is the emotional climax. That sheer determination you feel is forged entirely by these punishing game rules. When you finally pull it off, when you overcome those impossible odds and beat him, the rewards are so satisfying. You retrieve Anastacia's soul, which gives you the mechanical reward of finally relighting that precious bonfire. But you also get his personal equipment, things like the Ring of Favor and Protection, and later his armor set. And digging into the lore of these items uncovers a pretty surprising narrative twist. They describe his absolute, almost obsessive devotion to the Goddess Fina, hinting strongly that Lautrec might have been emotionally manipulated or completely delusional all along. He was doing terrible things in the name of a goddess who didn't truly care for him. This retrospective emotional depth takes the mechanical victory you just fought so hard for and shades the whole thing with tragedy. Which brings us to a final provocative thought to wrap up our explainer today. In a game where the hard mechanics, the rules of combat, the loss of a checkpoint, the sudden inability to heal, are exactly what tell the story and dictate your emotional response, are you just playing the game, or is the game playing you? It's a brilliant manipulation of your actions and frustrations to craft a narrative that you feel in your very bones. I hope this sparked your curiosity about the true nature of interactivity. Next time you pick up a controller, pay attention not just to what the characters are saying, but to what the rules of the world are making you feel. Thanks for exploring this with me today.